going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a variety show of sorts because first, I am going to be covering my finds from this year's Record Store Day Black Friday, and I'm going to be doing my monthly vinyl haul showcase of all the records that I acquired within the month of November this year in 2024. And sprinkled in between, I will be doing a review of the Fosi Audio Box X5 Phono Preamp. Now, if you're watching this video when it goes live, I hope all of you out there had a great Thanksgiving and spent it well. And if you lined up for Record Store Day Black Friday and bared the elements, I hope you guys got everything that you were after. As for myself, I basically got most of what was on my list. There's a couple of things I'm going to have to seek out elsewhere, but needless to say, enough of the chit chat. Let's jump into what this video is all about, starting off with my finds from 2024's Record Store Day Black Friday. Okay, so to kick things off, we have a little something from the Fab Four that first came to America 60 years ago. I'm not gonna lie, the Beatles are a band that are I think, underrepresented for Record Store Day. We've had a couple of releases in the past. We've had the Strawberry Fields Forever Penny Lane 7-inch. We also had the 3-inch records from this past Record Store Day from April, and a few other things. But this time around, to kind of coincide with the release of the Beatles 64 US albums in mono box set, along with the Beatles 64 documentary that just debuted on Disney+, we have a repo of their first Capitol single, which was I Wanna Hold Your Hand, backed with I Saw Her Standing There, the first two songs that appeared on the Meet the Beatles album. It's literally this single that basically sparked Beatlemania in the States, and the rest is history. And Capitol and Apple did a fantastic job replicating the picture sleeve, and also the photo looks absolutely rich in quality. And I like, too, that they sort of emphasized the A side on this side, and then you have I Saw Her Standing There emphasized on the flip side. Replicates that classic Capitol swirly sort of 7-inch label there on a nice slab of 7-inch vinyl. Now, this is marketed as being an RSD first release, limited to 10,000, so I could only assume that maybe this is still widely available. I'm not quite sure, but if you're a Beatles nut, you definitely owe it to yourself to pick this up. This is a pretty cool collectible. Then moving on into some jazz territory. No, it's not Bill Evans. No, it is not Herbie Hancock. It's sacrilege jazz, I guess you could say. Not sacrilege. It's such a fun listen. I'm talking about Jazz Sabbath, the 1968 tapes. I absolutely love the Jazz Sabbath releases, and that is because I am a Black Sabbath diehard. So Jazz Sabbath is literally, as you would expect, Black Sabbath songs done in the style of jazz. And the mastermind behind this project is Adam Wakeman, who is son to Rick Wakeman, yes, keyboard player. And he was also Black Sabbath's touring keyboardist along with Ozzy solo. And for the past couple of years, he has been putting out these releases of jazz renditions of Sabbath tunes. And if you know Sabbath very well and you know the songs off the back of your hand, you will find such joy in these arrangements, because if you know them well, you'd be like, oh, I see exactly what he did there. It's absolutely awesome. If you played it to the common person, they would think, oh, that's some pretty interesting jazz stuff. Little do they know. But on this release, you have things like Into the Void, Electric Funeral, Supernaut, Hole in the Sky, The Wizard, Spiral Architect, Warning, and War Pigs, which is absolutely solid stuff. Little hype sticker appears on the front cover there. Now, this is an RSD exclusive release, limited to 2,500 copies, and it is pressed on Coke bottle clear vinyl. I also like the labels. It almost looks like a scan of like a master tape box, which is pretty cool. But if you don't want to spin this on your turntable, that's totally cool, because they even included a CD copy of the release as well, which is super, super nice. Moving onward, we have Van Halen, live in Dallas, 1991. So this is a live show from the West End Marketplace in Dallas, Texas on December the 4th, 1991. This show was released as part of that Super Deluxe for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge box set. And there's quite an interesting history behind this show. I believe it was a free show. And I think there's even video footage as well of this performance on YouTube, as well as in the box set. And they went ahead and gave it a standalone vinyl vinyl release, which is absolutely awesome. Not gonna lie, I am warming up still to Van Hagar, let's just say, because obviously things kind of took a little bit of a shift when Sammy Hagar came into the fold after David Lee Roth left. And when it comes to Van Halen, I am a Roth loyalist, but and it's two different entities, but it's growing on me. So I felt like I should get more in the spirit and snag this for myself. Cool sort of artsy sort of album cover here. We got some band shots on the back. Gatefold spread has some band photos as well as guitar picks, passes, press clips, all kinds of good stuff. Now, this is an RSD exclusive pressing, limited to 6,000 copies. It is pressed on red vinyl. 3 sides, of course, and the 4th side is dedicated to an etching of the sort of later period Van Halen logo, which looks absolutely awesome. So really stoked to get this live Van Halen release. And the last record that I'll show in this segment is a prog classic, an alternate version of a prog classic, I should say. And that is, yes, Fragile Outtakes. So Fragile being one of Yes's classic albums, this is basically like an alternate version of that. We have early rough mixes of Roundabout, early takes of South Side of the Sky, alternate versions of Long Distance Runaround and Heart of the Sunrise. We also have a track called All Fighters Past, which kind of got whipped into shape around the time of Topographic Oceans. That appears on here. All these tracks did appear on the Super Deluxe edition of Fragile, and these outtakes were only on CD then. So this is the first time that they have been pressed onto vinyl. And if you want an alternate version of one of their classic records, I definitely would say seek this out for yourself. RSD exclusive release, limited to 3,000. The artwork is kind of interesting. We sort of have a die-cut jacket here with the Roger Dean artwork on the center label. The back is very much the same as the original. And then inside, we just have a die-cut jacket, and the vinyl itself is on black vinyl. Got the Dean artwork on the one side, and then the track list on the other. So overall, pretty solid. And like I said, perhaps you'll see the rest of my Record Store Day Black Friday finds in either my next monthly video, or maybe I'll do another segment similar to this on a future video. Stay tuned for it. Now it is time to shift gears a little bit and talk about today's sponsor, and that is Fosi Audio. Fosi Audio is a company that specializes in high-quality hi-fi audio products such as home amplifiers, preamps, DACs, speakers, and more. Although a relatively newer name in the audiophile business, having been around for less than 10 years, they've maintained a solid reputation with their high-quality products, a distribution network that reaches over 100 countries, and sales of 20 million audio products to date. Their mission is to redefine hi-fi with unmatched value between competitive pricing, innovative design, technology, and premium quality, all of which allows for high-end hi-fi products accessible for most consumers. The fine folks at Fosi Audio reached out to me and asked if I would like to review one of their newest products that they just launched to the market for Black Friday, and that is the Box X5 Phono Preamp. This preamp comes in a nifty box with die-cut molds holding both the preamp and the power supply, and you also get the very easy user manual. And as an added bonus, Fosi Audio threw in some complimentary keychains and a little happy holidays message, which was quite nice. The preamp itself has a very basic design with a power button in the front and the back, including the RCA inputs and outputs, and some nifty features such as the moving coil / moving magnet switch and an adjustable gain dial, which I'll get into in a minute, along with a ground post. Now, just to point out some of its technical perks, the Fosi Audio Box X5 Phono Preamp utilizes high-precision Panasonic metallized polyester film capacitors with a 2% toll ridge and ultra-precise 0.1 film resistors. These components deliver a clean and accurate sound profile, and the signal-to-noise ratio, being as low as 92 decibels, which does adhere to RIAA standards, provides a rich and clear playback experience. Getting this preamp from box to system is fairly simple and to the point, like most other preamps. You connect the 16-volt power supply from the preamp to your main power source. Then you connect the RCA cables from your turntable to the input ports of your preamp. Now, the RCA cables I'm using also have double-ended ground wires, so I have the turntable connected to the preamp, and if you have another ground cable, you can also connect it from the preamp to your receiver. RCA outputs go to either your receiver or powered speaker, speakers, depending on what you're using. For the purposes of this video, since my Onkyo receiver has a dedicated Phono Preamp integrated, the preamp is connected to the CD input. One important thing to note is that if your turntable has a built-in preamp, such as mine being the Audio-Technica LP120, make sure to switch over to the Phono switch, which will allow you to use an external preamp or a Phono stage on your receiver, since the line switch activates the built-in preamp. Once you're all connected, you press the power switch and you're ready to rock. Now, some turntable preamps are manufactured to just specialize in either moving magnet cartridges or moving coil cartridges. The great thing about the Fosi Audio Box X5 is that it is adaptable to either type of cartridge by just the flick of the input impedance selector switch, MC on the right for moving coil, and MM on the right for moving magnet. This switch also correlates with the gain knob and its 4 settings: 38 decibels, 48 decibels, 56 decibels, and 66 decibels. If you're using a moving magnet cartridge, you'll most likely be using the 38 or 48 decibel settings, and if you're using a moving coil cartridge, then you rely on the 56 or 66 decibel settings. It sounds complex, but luckily there's a little key in the user manual notating which setting you should use, but definitely double check what the output voltage is of the respective cartridge that you use in your setup. For myself, I use an Ortofon 2M Red, which is a moving magnet cartridge, which has an output voltage of 5.5 millivolts. And judging by the key in the user manual, any moving cartridge that has an output voltage of more than 2 millivolts is destined to stick to the 38 decibel setting on the gain knob, which is close to the standard 40 decibel level that's already preset with most preamps. Once I integrated this preamp into my setup, I was immediately blown away with the final result. The sound was so full, huge, and bold sounding. In the past, I found myself having to crank my volume knob to the 70s region for some respectable output when I was using the Phono stage in my receiver, and now with this, I can sit comfortably around the 50 region. Needless to say, I won't be turning back, and this will be my trusty preamp of choice going forward. Now, from a presentation perspective, I love the minimalistic approach to the design. I know that any piece of gear that uses tubes and all that analog goodness always looks cool, but having something as simple as a small sleek box that doesn't fight for space on your turntable rack / surface and can mesh well with any stylized turntable is always welcomed. Now, a lot of consumers would say that having the components of your hi-fi setup be separate is the best way to go, and I have to say it's true, because a multi-purpose receiver can only provide as good as a Phono stage along with every other function that it provides, and the built-in preamps that come with some turntables are okay from an entry-level perspective or to keep a setup simple and precise, but if you are seeking a top-quality Phono preamp to integrate into your hi-fi system for the solid price of $109.99 retail, I 100% recommend seeking out the Fosi Audio Box X5 Phono Preamp. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. Be sure to head on over to FosiAudio.com to order yours and check out their other assortment of hi-fi products. And if you're watching this video when it goes live, it's worth pointing out that they are running a Black Friday sale up until December 2nd. And if you use the code EBNP20BF, you get 20% off. Now back into vinyl talk. Here are my November 2024 vinyl acquisitions. Okay, it is not a record spinner haul if there's not some Kiss stuff, and we have some really cool things I'm going to show you guys. Starting off with some things that are in the unofficial vein. The first one here is perhaps one that I did not have to get unofficially, since I already have official reissues, a German pressing, a picture disc, but now we're going to add a fourth to the family of Rock and Roll Over. Now, you might be wondering what's so unique about this one. First off, the cover is what kind of caught me off guard, because technically this is how it originally goes, with Paul being in the sort of upper left-hand corner, but instead the jacket is like this, upside down with Ace in that direction. Back cover is exactly how it should be with the track list. Now, this is a part of those sort of unofficial presses where they include bonus posters with the pressings, depending on like which way you want to hang it. Kind of works either way. I think this is an 11 by 17. And the vinyl itself is unique because it's on the Casablanca Record and Filmworks label, which started being used around 77, since Rock and Roll Over came out on what's called the Caspa label. but it is pressed on sort of marble purple colored vinyl. So the color of it is absolutely gorgeous. Now, granted, like I said, if you have an official reissue of it, there's no real need to get this, but because I have this sort of interesting fascination with these kind of pressings, I always see the need to get them. I was big on getting these a couple years back, and I kind of stopped for a little bit, but when I saw this one out in the wild, I was like, you know what? Might as well. But then to keep it in the unofficial vein, here is something that just recently came out in these sort of circles, as I like to call them. This is a compilation that has been needing a standalone reissue. Original pressings are very hard to come by. It was officially reissued as part of the Kisteria box set, but it's only available on that, and that's almost unobtainable. And Kiss Online hasn't even jumped on doing an exclusive colored vinyl picture disc reissue. So needless to say, this finally got an unofficial treatment. And that is, of course, you wanted the best, you got the best. This comp came out back in 1996, features tracks off of Alive and Alive 2, along with some unreleased live cuts. I say that in quotations because all you have to do is just listen to those 90s overdubs. That's all I'm going to say. But also, we do have a live recording of New York Groove with Eric Carr on drums that's recorded from Sydney, Australia. And then, oddly enough, we have an interview session with Jay Leno called Kiss Tells All. They definitely could have put 17 minutes and 34 seconds worth of music on that B-side, but I don't know. It exists for what it is. This kind of came out to kind of coincide with the reunion tour at the time, and this was a big missing hole in my Kiss collection, so I finally have it now. And I do have to say, with these unofficial presses, it can kind of be hit or miss in terms of the artwork. It might look a little pixelated, scanned from a CD, but this right here, I think they did a really good job in terms of the front and back cover. And as for the vinyl, they do replicate the original custom center labels, and the vinyl itself is pressed on purple vinyl, which is really, really solid. Kind of matches the sort of purple hue of the album cover. So this is really, really solid, and I'm so glad that I finally got my hands on a copy of this comp. And speaking of Kiss Online exclusives, we do have one to show here in this haul, and that is, of course, Hot in the Shade from 1989. So this album celebrated its 35th anniversary, and now they have been doing these sort of foil covers with additional posters and such. As you can see, the foil effect comes along very nicely, but yet the sort of stamped emblem with the album title is kind of in its original shade, which is kind of interesting. Now, this is limited to, I think, 2,000 or 2,500 copies, I want to say. Original printed inner sleeve, very glossy too, I must say. Glossy enough that it's kind of tough to take the record out without smudging it too much. Got to be very careful. But the vinyl itself is gorgeous. It's like on this sort of blue and white, sort of wavy colored vinyl. This actually got a blue vinyl pressing done several years back. And so this is like the second time that Kiss Online has done something with it. And then here is the poster, which did not come with the original pressing. This is exclusive to Kiss Online. Very cool photo. And I actually pasted the hype sticker on the back. Yes, limited to 2,500 units. So this is really, really cool to have. And of course, as always, you got to buy the merch in order to get the vinyl. So with this colored vinyl press, there was a pullover hoodie that came with it, which I do have. I just don't have it on me right now. I think it's in the wash as we speak. But I did get that as well, and that looks really, really sick. And as of filming this, my Hotter Than Hell Gold Nugget colored vinyl is on the way, so you might have to wait until December to see that. I was really hoping to get it in time to show it in this video, but that is not the case. So obviously, Kiss is my #1 favorite band of all time. Now we're going to go to my second favorite band of all time, and that is Pink Floyd. This live album has never gotten an official vinyl pressing, albeit when it first came out in the early 2000s, when the Pink Floyd vinyl reissue campaign was going on, they completely skipped this over, along with a couple of other Pink Floyd releases. Now with the catalog being sold, I'm not quite sure if maybe we'll finally get an official reissue of this, but until then, as of filming, this is the only way to get a vinyl pressing of Is There Anybody Out There? The Wall Live, 1980 to 1981. Obviously, it's the band performing The Wall live from the Wall tour, recorded live at Earl's Court between both sort of stands that they did at the venue. Obviously, they appeared in it back in 1980, and then when they decided to make the movie, they filmed the shows in 81. But while they did not use the concert footage, which Roger Waters is still sitting on, and that needs to come out at some point, at least before I croak, they went ahead and went to the multi-tracks and basically produced a soundtrack, a 2 CD, 3 LP in this case, live album of the album being performed live. Not too many stark differences compared to the original studio album, except you get things like the expanded empty spaces, along with What Shall We Do Now? And then we have The Last Few Bricks, which is like a little instrumental segment as they were building the rest of the wall in that first part of the show. It's really, really solid. To be honest, I think I kind of prefer the live version of The Wall, but needless to say, it's really solid stuff. And they did a great unofficial pressing. They being the powers that be in the unofficial world. Front cover here features the lifelike masks of each member that was worn by the surrogate band at the very beginning of the show. Here is the backside, and here we have like a little cutout of a brick right there, and then this opens up, and we have a wide stage shot of both the actual band playing with the surrogate band, which is pretty cool. Now, this is an interesting thing. First and foremost, we have a little wall poster. Very nice. 3 LPs, 5 sides of vinyl. And of course, it is on nice green wax. But for this first LP, this is technically it's side A, but it says it's side B. But here is the opposite side. So this is a sort of weird, sort of half vinyl record, half unplayable picture disc, essentially. They had to occupy that side somehow, so we have a cool sort of wall image of the screaming face there, which is quite unique. I don't think you really see that too much when it comes to a lot of official releases in general. So really happy to have this this unofficial press of Is There Anybody Out There? Moving on to an album that is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. One of the most important debut albums of all time, and also one of the most rockin' debut albums of all time. There have been a number of new pressings out there. There was a big super duper box set. There's a splatter vinyl indie exclusive, but I opted for the web store exclusive 2LP 45 RPM pressing of Weezer's Blue Album, or the self-titled debut, whichever you want to call it. Fantastic record. My Name is Jonas, Buddy Holly, Undone the Sweater Song, Say It Ain't So, my favorite Weezer song, which I think is Only in Dreams. It's definitely high up there. I feel like I'm saying that excitingly because my favorite Weezer album is the Green Album, and Don't Let Go is a phenomenal opener, but this definitely comes close. But this was only available on the Interscope web store, which is limited to 1,000 copies. It might be more. I got an email disclaimer saying that they may have pressed more, but it is also numbered as well. It is copy number 188. And if you have the 2016 Direct Metal Mastered pressing, you'll know that the artwork is kind of bare bones. It just has the insert with the sort of garage spread, but they kind of did some cool stuff here on this pressing. We have a cool gatefold shot of the band, and obviously nice sort of foil type jacket to it. And it's interesting too because it's kind of done in a way where like the members sort of pop out and they don't mesh in with that foil kind of look. It looks really, really awesome. And then as for the inside, I could have sworn that there was something extra in this pressing. Ah, there is. So we do have a sort of silver foil insert which opens up like this, and we have another band shot. So you don't have that garage shot like the original had, but it still is very cool. Standard black vinyl with the standard blue label. And I'm really stoked to listen to this this 2LP 45 RPM half speed pressing and see how it compares with the colored vinyl MoFi that I got some time ago. And that is a really, really solid pressing. So I'll be curious to see how that sounds compared to this. Then we get into some classic territory, stuff from the 70s. This next piece is a Rhino Records exclusive release, only available on their web store. And I jumped on this because this was the last album that I needed of this particular band, and I was just waiting for a proper reissue to come out where they replicated the artwork properly. And that is, of course, Alice Cooper, Muscle of Love. So this was the Alice Cooper group's final album. Bob Ezrin was not in the photo for this record, and you can kind of tell when you listen to it. It definitely doesn't stand out amongst the other records that they were churning out, like Billion Dollar Baby, School's Out, Killer, Love It to Death. And like I said, I've been waiting for a reissue where they did the cardboard box packaging perfectly. Now, I think Friday Music did a pricing where they just made a gatefold out of it, but that's not authentic. So we have this cool cardboard sort of box, which opens up like this, and we have all the goodies inside. So inside we have a little poster insert, which has each of the band members. We also have a cool booklet, which has the guys in costumes, and this is like a track-by-track breakdown of all the tracks on the album, along with all of the extra material as well. So you get the remastered album, and then you basically get a bunch of different early versions, alternate mixes, all kinds of stuff like that. Now, these, of course, are lifted from the original album artwork. So these are lifted from there. This one obviously houses the original album, and then as you see, the second LP here has all the extra material. And as for the vinyl itself, it is pressed on pink vinyl, matches the color of the text on the box, and it has that palm tree Warner Brothers label. But as you can tell now, it is christened as Warner Records. So just like that, the missing piece of my Alice Cooper group collection is complete with this great reissue of Muscle of Love. I'll assemble this off camera just so we can move along. And then we get into some audiophile goodness from Acoustic Sounds. Now, I did not order anything from Acoustic Sounds recently. Usually that means that if I get a shipping notification, it's because Chad Kasem wants me to review some particular hot titles for trackingangle.com. So these records I'm going to show you guys, be sure to head on over to trackingangle.com so you can see my full in-depth written reviews of these particular pressings. Now, on the invoice, it said that I was getting this particular record, which I thought was cool. Now, granted, I've never listened to this album before. It's going to be shocking given how much of a 70s hard rock fan that I am, as much as I do love the live album that came out before this album did, by perhaps the kings of boogie rock, let's just say. We have Humble Pie's Smokin'. Now on this you have Hot and Nasty. 30 Days in the Hole is the notable piece. I think Ace Frehley did a cover of that on one of his Origins albums. And I've heard this is a really, really solid Humble Pie record, and this will be a fun listen for me for the first time, and also from a sonic perspective. And just to kind of point it out, according to the bottom here, 100% all analog, mastered and cut to lacquer from a half-inch flat tape copy of the original master tape. Even though it's a copy, I'm sure it's still going to sound great. I have some tape copy pricings that Analog Productions have done, and they sound really, really solid. We have a nice gatefold jacket here full of band photos taken from the studio. And then for the vinyl itself, pressed on that high-quality QRP vinyl, and it replicates the, I guess you could call it the olive green A&M label. I'm so used to saying olive green Warner Brothers, but that's a nice olive green A&M. So really, really solid. But then there was another item on that invoice that, like I mentioned, and it said non-stock item. And I'm like, that's a bit vague. I'm not sure what exactly that is. I thought maybe it was like a thank you gesture for all the positive reviews that I've given Analog Productions throughout this year. But sure enough, they actually sent me a record that was on my Christmas list. And I had to tell the person that had asked to not order this record. But also I was so shocked, stunned, and excited because I really wanted this pressing so bad. And given how much I love this particular band, it just made it even more special for me to get my hands on a promo copy of Genesis Nursery Crime. first album with the classic lineup of Gabriel, Hackett, Rutherford, Banks, and Collins. The musical box is on here. Return of the Giant Hogweed, Fountain of Sumasis. This is honestly one of my favorite early Genesis albums, and when it comes to my love for Genesis and me getting into them when I was a kid, thanks to my parents, this album was one that I listened to a lot. And of course, this is part of the Atlantic Records 75th anniversary series, so 2 LP, 45 RPM, cut from the original master tape. The last time that the original mix made its way onto the grooves was back in the early 2000s by Classic Records, and since then it's been the remix, you know, pressed over and over and over again. So it's nice to get reacquainted with this original mix. It's been a hot minute since I last listened to it. Replicates the artwork perfectly, but here is the interesting thing with the label. So as I mentioned, this is all done in conjunction with Atlantic Records. Now, obviously, this came out on Charisma, and originally came on the Pink Scroll label, but look, it does not say Charisma. Instead, they kind of modified it to where instead of saying the famous Charisma label, it just says Genesis on that scroll there. So it's an interesting take on this particular label variant that Charisma had. I kind of have to look into why they did that. As I'm filming this, I am in the process of writing that review, so I'll get down to the bottom of it when you read it. But seriously, such a pleasant surprise from Analog Productions for trusting me with these particular releases that I'm sure are going to sound absolutely wonderful. So there you guys go. That is the Record Spinner variety show of my Record Store Day Black Friday finds from this year, as well as my November 2024 vinyl finds, along with my review of the Fosi Audio Box X5 Phono Preamp. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the records spinning.